Hi, and welcome to the first part of our conversation about LLMs. So the objective for this video is really just to make sense of what is the difference between a Google search, searching any kind of search engine, and a large language model like ChatGPT or Claude or any of the above. So I want to really encourage you to take notes during this video. I did a class in person last semester in which I required students to use a notebook and actually write notes in their notebook all throughout class. They were not allowed to access the course slides online. The only information they could take was what they were able to write with their hands. And not only do we have a lot of evidence that shows that it's better for your learning, but my students said they really appreciated it. I know it's hard to make yourself do this kind of thing at home over the summer or whenever you're taking this class. But if you can commit to taking notes by hand and actually zooming in your brain on this lecture for a few moments, it really will help out your learning quite a bit. So as you watch, I would like you to take notes on the following questions. What is the actual difference between a traditional Google search and asking an LLM like ChatGPT for information or for something? That's what I really want you to focus on. So let's talk about what exactly are large language models. And here's where you're going to begin taking your notes. So large language model is just a form of generative AI that works with text. So ChatGPT is an LLM, so is Claude, Microsoft Copilot, Google's Gemini. These are tools that you've probably heard about and already experimented with. Now, here's a big idea I want you to hold on to for this whole presentation. The main difference between a search engine and an LLM comes down to words. It's discovery versus generation. So let's break that down. When you type something into Google, Google does a few specific things. It already crawled the web, meaning it sent out automated programs to visit billions of web pages and collect information about them. It organized that into a massive catalog. And when you type your search, it ranks the results and shows you a list of links. And here's the thing, every single result that Google shows you is a real thing that actually exists. A real person or organization made that page. It's already out there on the internet. Google is just pointing you to it. Your job when you get those results is to look at each one and decide, is this source credible? Does this come from someone I should trust? And by the way, we'll talk a little bit about how to evaluate sources for credibility later in this semester. The thing is, LLMs look or work totally differently. So, large language models are probabilistic systems that attempt to predict word sequences. They are making word-by-word predictions in the context of your prompt. They are not fact databases at all. So here's some of the big distinctions. When you type a question into ChatGPT, it is not searching the web. It is not pointing you to a list of existing documents. Now, it does have access to sources from the internet that might give it information. And some of the models can access the internet to have some more information in its training set. However, it's predicting what the next word in a response should be. And the next word, and then the next, and over and over and over again, very quickly until it has generated a perfect response. So it was trained on a massive database of text, books, websites, articles, all kinds of writing, and also human training. And from that training, it learned patterns. It learned what kinds of words and sentences typically follow other kinds of words and sentences. So when you ask it a question, it uses those patterns to generate something that sounds like a reasonable answer. And the most important thing is that these things are not trained to generate truth. They are trained to generate plausible responses. And a lot of the time, what they produce actually is true, but it's almost a coincidence. It is not the goal of these language models. The goal is to produce text that sounds right, that flows well, that seems like a reasonable answer. Whether it's actually accurate is a separate question that the model does not inherently verify. So a researcher from the University of Washington helps us see that these two things are not interchangeable. It's not that an LLM is necessarily bad and a Google search is necessarily good. It's just that they are different. You've probably seen a lot about how AI can be wrong, and that's because it's not designed to tell the truth. It's designed to predict. Here's a great example of a time when it was wrong, or another word for being wrong when it's an LLM is hallucination. So when it hallucinated. I'm a huge college football fan, and even a few days after last year's national championship, when Indiana won 16 straight games to win the national championship, AI had this to say. It said that the Indiana Hoosiers entered the college football playoff national championship game at 15-0, but lost to Miami, preventing them from joining Yale as the first major team to reach 16-0 in the modern era. So it was predicting what was likely to be the case, or what made sense based off of the data it had about the world before that. But the thing is, the world does not do exactly what it did in the past. So AI really can be wrong, and that is a problem for us. So the next video is going to do a deep dive into why, more specifically, AI will always have problems with truth, why it will always hallucinate, maybe sometimes less than what it did in earlier days, but it will always do this. And so this video, it might blow your mind. It kind of still blows my mind. I think there is some real creative and interesting and awesome potential for AI to be an amazing creative tool for us, but it's also kind of insanely scary. So I hope you followed the objectives, took some good notes, and have learned a little bit more about LLMs, and I will see you in the next video.